Territory. In 1707, the last powerful Mughal ruler, Aurangzeb, died. After his death, many powerful Mughal governors, that is Subedars and Zamindars, began asserting their authority. There emerged several powerful regional kingdoms in different parts of India. The power of Delhi declined significantly and it no longer functioned as an effective center. On the political horizon of India, a new power emerged by the second half of the 18th century. They were the British, who originally came as a small trading company and gradually acquired political power. Advent of European companies. By the end of the 16th century, Europeans' overseas trade with the East began to yield enormous profits. Groups of merchants were permitted by rulers of some European countries to start trading companies. They established their trading centers in various parts of the world, especially on the coasts. These centers were called factories because the officials of the companies were known as factors. These companies were given monopoly, that is, exclusive rights of trade with the East. This implied that no other merchant or merchants could participate in the Eastern trade. In return, the ruler received a share of the profit. English East India Company. On 31st December 1600, Queen Elizabeth I issued a charter granting East India Company the monopoly to trade with the East for 15 years. This meant that no other trading company in England could compete with the East India Company. It was a private company run by a board of directors. The first trading depot, known as factory, was set up in Surat by the company in the early 17th century. Mughal Emperor Jahangir granted the permission to set up factories in his territories. The East India Company established factories at two places, Surat, Gujarat on the west coast and Hooghly, West Bengal in the east. In due course, many locations in Indian peninsula became the centers of international trade in commodities like spices, cotton, raw silk, sugar, saltpeter, textile and indigo. French East India Company, FEIC. The French East India Company set up settlements at Chandanagar, that is in Bengal, Mahe, Kerala, Karaikal and Puducherry on the eastern coast, and Mauritius in Indian Ocean in 1664. The French East India Company was largely a government-controlled business venture and depended on the French government for its funding. A major role in the expansion of French power in India was played by Dupleix, the French Governor-General at Pondicherry or Puducherry. Rivalry in trade. During the 17th and 18th centuries, rulers of many European countries pursued the policy of mercantilism. Mercantilism, in simple words, means that a government provided protection to trade against foreign competition in order to earn more profits. Therefore, European companies supported by the respective governments came into existence. The Royal Charter issued by Queen Elizabeth I, however, could not prevent other European powers from entering into trade with the Eastern world. By the time the English appeared, the Portuguese had already established their presence on the western coast of India. They had their base at Goa. In fact, In 1498, a Portuguese explorer, Vasco da Gama, had discovered the sea route to India via the Cape of Good Hope. By the early 17th century, the Dutch and the French traders also arrived on the scene. The presence of so many companies intensified competition and reduced profits. All of them wanted to buy goods at low prices in India and sell them at very high prices elsewhere, particularly in Europe. The need to secure markets resulted in aggressive wars between the trading companies. During this period, trade was carried on with arms and rival countries regularly sank each other's ships, blocked routes and prevented rival ships from moving with supplies of goods. Trading centers were protected through fortifications and companies raised their own armies. In course of time, the Portuguese and the Dutch were ousted from the Indian trade. The English and the French started dominating the trade between India and Europe. Anglo-French rivalry. Around the middle of 18th century, English and French trade interests clashed that resulted in the three Anglo-French wars. These are referred as the Carnatic Wars from 1744 to 1763. Since most of the battles were fought in the region within the present state of Tamil Nadu. British conquest of Bengal. The English East India Company was merely a trading body in the early 17th century. They established their first trade settlement at Hooghly around 1651. The company traders, known as factors, operated from this place. The factory consisted of warehouse and offices as well as residential quarters. The company's trade flourished, but when they violated trade rules, Aurangzeb declared a war and defeated them. Later, the company persuaded Aurangzeb to grant them the right to carry on duty-free trade in return for an annual payment. After Aurangzeb's death, the Mughal Empire became weak and the company intensified its operations in Bengal. In 1717, they got the right to import and export goods without paying the customs duty from Mughal Emperor Farrukh Shiar. However, the company's employees misused this right and carried on illegal private trade for which they did not pay trade duties. This resulted in enormous loss of revenue for Bengal. Conflict between the company and the Nawabs of Bengal. In the first half of the 18th century, the conflicts between the Nawabs of Bengal and the company intensified. Murshid Qoli Khan, Sirajud-Dowla, and Alivardi Khan were strong rulers. In order to keep a check on activities of the officials of the company, the Nawabs laid down certain conditions which the company had to obey or lose its right to trade in Bengal. These conditions were: the officials of the company who were engaged in private trade shall pay customs duty, or the privilege of duty-free trade will be withdrawn altogether. The company shall not extend the fortification of its settlement. The Nawabs forbid the company from minting coins. The company shall pay a larger amount of tribute for the trade concessions. After the military successes against the French both in Europe and in India, the company was feeling even more confident. It felt that the unjust demands of the Nawab and its officials were ruining the company's trade. They were of the opinion that in order to expand trade, they needed to enlarge and fortify their settlements. The situation worsened in 1756 when Siraj-ud-Daulah became the Nawab of Bengal. He was furious at the company's interference in the affairs of Bengal, expansion of fortification in spite of his orders, and failure to pay up the revenue dues. When negotiations failed, an angry Siraj-ud-Daulah captured English factory at Qasim Bazar and company's fort at Calcutta. Soon, Robert Clive took charge of company's affair in Bengal and re-established company's previous position and trade privileges by treacherous means. The Battle of Plassey, 1757. The beginning of British political sway over India may be traced to the Battle of Plassey in 1757. After establishing themselves in Calcutta and making the Nawab grant them all demands, Clive wanted a puppet ruler who would grant them more privileges. Clive conspired with Mir Zafar, Commander-in-Chief, Jagat Seth, richest banker, and Omi Chand, a rich merchant, to overthrow Siraj-ud-Daulah. On 23 June 1757, the armies of Siraj-ud-Daulah and English East India Company met at Plassey or Palashi. Robert Clive led the British forces. The commander-in-chief of Nawab, Mir Zafar, along with his army, did not take part in the battle. Siraj-ud-Daulah was killed and Mir Zafar was made the Nawab of Bengal. The Battle of Plassey is a significant landmark in the history of India as it transformed a mere trading company into a political power. Bengal after Plassey. Mir Zafar became a puppet in the hands of the British, and they constantly demanded money and privileges. When Mir Zafar failed to meet the company's heavy monetary demands, he was deposed. In 1760, the company made his son-in-law, Mir Qasim, the Nawab of Bengal. In return, Mir Qasim gave the company the zamindari of Burdwan, Midnapur, and Chittagong. After some years, Mir Qasim attempted to free himself from the British domination. He dismissed courts officials who favored the British, hired European experts to train his army, and abolished all duties on internal trade so that both Indian and British merchants could trade on equal terms. As a result, Indian merchants were also able to enjoy the concessions which only the English had enjoyed so far. Mir Qasim also placed limits on the trade privileges of the company. The Battle of Buxar, 1764. All this irked the company and they declared a war on him. Mir Qasim was defeated in 1763 and Mir Zafar was restored as the Nawab of Bengal. Mir Qasim fled to Awadh and entered into an alliance with the Nawab of Awadh, Shuja-ud-Daulah, and the Mughal Emperor Shah Alam II. Their combined forces fought with the British army at Buxar on 22nd October 1764, but they were defeated. With this victory, the company became the real master of Bengal. Major consequences of the Battle of Buxar. In 1765, the Treaty of Allahabad was signed between Shuja-ud-Daulah, Shah Alam II, and Clive. As per the treaty, the English East India Company got Diwani of Bengal from the Mughal Emperor Shah Alam II. Now they could collect revenue from Bengal, Bihar, and Odisha. In return, the emperor would receive an annual tribute of 26 lakh rupees and two districts in Uttar Pradesh, Allahabad and Kara. The emperor resided in the fort of Allahabad under the protection of the British. The Nawab of Awadh was made to pay an indemnity of 50 lakh rupees. The company restored his kingdom and promised to help in case of attack on his territory. In 1765, Robert Clive introduced dual government in Bengal, which lasted up to 1772. Under this system, the Nawab had all responsibilities but no powers or resources to run the administration, and the company had all powers but no responsibilities. The British controlled collection of revenue and Nizamat, that is, military and criminal jurisdiction, through Indian representatives. The Nawab was given a meager share of the revenue to run the administration. The people of Bengal suffered a lot under this system. This system made the company the virtual ruler of Bengal. Even during the famine that struck Bengal in 1770 and wiped out nearly one-third of the population, neither the company nor the Nawab provided any aid. Meanwhile, the company's officials amassed great wealth. In 1772, Warren Hastings, 1772 to 1785, became the new Governor General of Bengal. The dual system of governance ended and Bengal came under direct control of the English East India Company. Growth of British influence. In order to bring the whole of India under its domination, the British adopted some novel expansionist strategies. During the second half of the 18th century, kingdoms of Mysore and Maratha were the biggest threat to British rule. The company launched wars against both. Mysore. Mysore emerged as a powerful state under the outstanding leadership of Hyder Ali, 1761 to 1782, and his son Tipu Sultan, 1782 to 1799. Mysore controlled the profitable spice trade of the Malabar coast. In 1785, Tipu Sultan stopped the export of sandalwood, pepper, and cardamom through the ports of his kingdom and prohibited local merchants from trading with the company. Tipu Sultan established friendly relations with the French in India and modernized his army with their assistance. The British and the Deccan states perceived Hyder and Tipu as a threat. This led to the four Anglo-Mysore wars between 1767 and 1799. In the first Anglo-Mysore War, Hyder Ali gave a crushing defeat to the British. He signed the Treaty of Madras with the British in 1769, according to which both sides would help each other in case of an attack by a third party. In 1770, the Marathas attacked Mysore, but the British forces did not help them. This enraged Hyder Ali and he defeated the British in the Battle of Polilur. Hyder Ali died in 1782 while fighting the English forces in Chittoor, but his son Tipu Sultan continued the war. The Second Anglo-Mysore War ended in 1784 with the Treaty of Mangalore. The Third Anglo-Mysore War was a result of Tipu's attempts to restrict the British spice trade on the Malabar coast and his increasing proximity to the French. The British, led by Lord Cornwallis and supported by the Nizam and the Marathas, defeated Tipu. He had to pay a huge fine and a part of his kingdom, while two of his sons were taken hostage by the British. Governor General Lord Wellesley proposed that Tipu should accept the subsidiary alliance. Tipu outrightly rejected his proposal, which led to the Fourth Anglo-Mysore War. Tipu Sultan died in 1799, defending his capital, Seringapatam. After Tipu's death, the British annexed his kingdom, placed Mysore under Wodeyars, the former ruling dynasty, and imposed a subsidiary alliance on the state. Marathas. After their defeat in the Third Battle of Panipat in 1761, the Marathas became weak. There emerged different seats of Maratha powers under different dynasties such as Gaikwads, Holkars, Bhosles, and Sindhyas. They were held together into a confederacy under the Peshwa, that is, principal minister, based in Pune. After the 1770s, the power struggle among the Maratha chiefs intensified. Taking advantage of their disunity, the British interfered in their internal affairs. This led to the three Anglo-Maratha wars between 1775 and 1818. The First Anglo-Maratha War, that is from 1775 to 1782, broke out on the issue of succession to the throne of the Peshwa. The clash involved Madhav Rao II, supported by Maratha chiefs under the leadership of Nana Fadnis on the one hand and Raghunath Rao, supported by the British, on the other. The united Maratha chiefs defeated the British forces. However, the British forces captured Ahmedabad and Gwalior. In 1782, peace was concluded by the Treaty of Salbai. The British recognized Madhav Rao II as the Peshwa. The Second Anglo-Maratha War from 1803 to 1805 happened because the British under Lord Wellesley tried to impose a subsidiary alliance on the Sindhyas and Bhosles. They resisted and declared a war on the British. They were eventually defeated and had to accept the subsidiary alliance as well as part with the territories of Ahmednagar and Bhuj. The British also attacked the Holkar ruler of Indore, but the war did not lead to a decisive result as Lord Wellesley was recalled to England and peace was concluded with the Holkars. In the Third Anglo-Maratha War, from 1817 to 1819, Peshwa Baji Rao II tried to unite the Maratha chiefs against the British. However, Maratha forces lost. The office of the Peshwa was abolished. Baji Rao II was deposed and pensioned off to Bithur near Kanpur. All his kingdom, as well as territories of other Maratha chiefs, were annexed by the British and they were not allowed to maintain any army. British expansion under Lord Wellesley, 1798 to 1805. Lord Wellesley, who was the Governor-General of India from 1798 to 1805, extended the British influence in two ways. Number 1, subsidiary alliances. Number 2, direct war. Subsidiary alliance. As per the subsidiary alliance, a ruler had to disband his own army and maintain British troops permanently at their cost or cede some territory in lieu of it. In case rulers failed to make payments, a part of the territory was taken away as penalty. Except a British officer called the resident, who would be stationed at the ruler's court. A resident was a political or commercial agent whose job was to further the British interest. Expel all other foreigners from his territory. Consult the British before negotiating with any other Indian state. The Nizam of Hyderabad was the first to enter into a subsidiary alliance with the English in 1798. In 1801, Lord Wellesley coerced the Nawab of Awadh, to accept the subsidiary alliance. Peshwa Bajirao II signed a subsidiary alliance at Bessin in 1802. Many Rajputana chiefs also accepted British supremacy and signed treaties. The Indian rulers who accepted this alliance lost all their independence. They could take no independent decisions. In addition, they had to maintain the British army. This was a great financial drain. To make matters worse, the residents' demands also had to be fulfilled. On the other hand, it proved very advantageous to the British. Now they could maintain a large army at the cost of others. The military and foreign affairs of the alliance partner directly came under their control. Through the resident, they could exercise control even in internal matters. Finally, territories of Indian rulers could be annexed at any point of time. This led to development of a new power bloc in the politics of India, and ultimately the British became the supreme political power in India by their policies.